Hey everyone! Before we begin today, we'd like to give a huge shout out to our patrons Liz and Diana who upgraded their pledges. If you want to get access to our notes, our Discord community, and submit your very own study questions about Mansfield Park for us to answer on air, check out our Patreon at patreon.com/podandprejudice. And now enjoy this week's episode, a very special crossover episode with Hot and Bothered, covering Becoming Jane.
So we're technically on a break, but it is the 250th anniversary of Jane Austen's birth. And so we thought that we would use it as an excuse to partner with our friends over at Pod and Prejudice and watch a bonus movie. To that end, we are watching Becoming Jane, the 2007 Anne Hathaway James McAvoy movie that theoretically is a biopic about Jane Austen. Unfortunately, it has little to do with what we actually know about Jane Austen. Which, by the way, we know very little, so you'd think it would be easy to get the, 10 facts that we do know correct. Becoming Jane is about a 21-year-old Austen who lives with her family in pastoral Hampshire. She's very close with her sister Cassandra, who's engaged. And Jane is a budding writer trying to find her voice when a Mr. Tom Lefroy arrives on the scene. Tom is a brash, dashing Irishman studying under his uncle's sponsorship to be a lawyer. He gets sent to the countryside because he's boxing and whoring too much.
Gambling, running around St. James's like a neck-or-nothing young blood of the fancy. What kind of lawyer will that make?
Typical.
And gets sent straight to cousins in Hampshire, into Jane's orbit. The two butt heads.
Where exactly in Ireland does he come from, anyway?
Limerick, Miss Austen.
But then fall in love. Jane is being pursued by the local wealthy woman's nephew, Wisley, and Wisley proposes. Jane puts him off at a ball when she should be dancing with Wisley. Instead, she kisses Tom, who grabs her and says,
I have no money, no property. I am entirely dependent upon that bizarre old lunatic, my uncle. I cannot yet offer marriage, but you must know what I feel. Jane, I am yours.
The two hatch a plan. If Tom can get his uncle to approve of Jane, he will give them the money that they need in order to get married, and the two of them can be together. So off Tom and Jane go to London. But right as Tom is about to ask for his uncle's permission to marry Jane, a letter arrives, saying something that causes the uncle to forbid the marriage.
Damn it, nephew, I had rather you were a whoremongering blackguard with a chance of reform than a lovesick whelp sunk in a bad marriage.
Tom explains to Jane that he depends entirely upon his uncle, so they can't get married. Jane returns to Hampshire to the pursuer who she doesn't want and is heartbroken. Jane finds out that Tom has gotten engaged to a rich woman. Cassandra's fiancé dies, and the two, Jane and Cassandra, cry in their shared room together as Jane starts working on Pride and Prejudice, which she describes as,
It is the tale of a young woman, two young women, better than the circumstances.
Jane is then on a walk with her brother in the Hampshire woods when Tom appears almost out of nowhere. Jane is livid, asks him about his fiancé, and then he says he can't take it and runs and kisses Jane.
Jane, I have tried. And I cannot live this lie.
He then asks her to do the most forbidden of things, elope, even though it'll ruin both of them. They run off together, but they don't make it far, only to the next town. Because Jane finds a letter from Tom's mom, and it becomes clear that Tom is supporting his whole family back in Ireland. Jane breaks up with him. She will not be the person who steals food from the mouths of his parents and siblings.
Do you love me?
Yes. But if our love destroys your family, it will destroy itself. Yes.
She returns to Hampshire. Wisley is still willing to marry her. but with her family's support, she will try to support herself by her pen. We then fast forward to 20 years later. Jane is at a concert with her brother and his wife when they run into Tom. Jane is a famous writer, and Tom's daughter is a fan. And then we find out that Tom has named his daughter Jane. The postscript on this movie says that that is true. Tom Lefroy really did name his daughter Jane. Other than that, this biopic is pretty much nonsense. Austen really was engaged for 24 hours, but when she was 27, not 21. And she really did have a crush on Tom Lefroy, but he wasn't even the person she got engaged to. This isn't so much a biopic as fanfic. But who doesn't love Austen fanfic? I'm Vanessa Zoltan.
I'm Molly.
I'm Becca.
And this is a crossover episode of Hot and Bothered and Pod and Prejudice. Okay, Molly and Becca, you go first. Please introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about Pod and Prejudice.
Thanks so much, Vanessa. We're so happy to be here. I'm Becca. I myself have read many Jane Austen novels through my lifetime.
And I am Molly, and I have never read any Jane Austen, or at least I had never read any Jane Austen before starting Pod and Prejudice.
Together, Molly and I read through the Austen canon and review and cover many of her adaptations so Molly can become a part of this wonderful world of Jane Austen's literature and stories. And I think at this point it's safe to say you've become part of that world.
I've become part of Jane's world, much like this film.
And I'm Vanessa Zoltan. I am the co-host of Hot and Bothered, where we have done a whole season about Pride and Prejudice called Live from Pemberley. But our current season, we are analyzing mostly rom-coms, but just romantic films in general, and trying to understand how movies from the past impact our brains and how love stories in general impact us while also loving them. We're skeptical of them and love them. But Pod and Prejudice, I have been here before. You guys had me watch the Kate Beckinsale Emma, for which I will always be eternally grateful.
It was 2. You've been on twice, I think. We did a little Sense and Sensibility. I think you covered part of the movie with us. And then we covered the whole of the Emma with Kate Beckinsale. And I'll never forget, because of the Mark Strong, I held you in my arms when you were a baby line.
Yes. And that was so disturbing. And I love that they kept that in.
Yeah.
And I always love talking to you guys. So we are going to talk about Becoming Jane today. And we're doing this crossover episode to celebrate Jane Austen's 250th birthday. So we thought in order to honor the actual Jane Austen, we would watch this 100% perfectly researched, accurate biopic.
Truly a documentary.
I will say the only accurate Jane Austen biographies are the ones that are like, and we don't know, which are really annoying to read, right? It's like, this is a piece of data that we have, but how to analyze that data? Who knows? And anyone who tries to tell you more than a little bit about Jane Austen is that is mostly conjecture. So you might as well just take some big swings, which is, boy, what this movie does.
They really did. But there were some nice nods, and we'll get into it. There were some nice nods to some things that we do know about her life.
I agree. And it's fun. You're like, oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really interesting that there is so much content about Jane herself out there, because there is an instinct we have when we love an artist to know about the artist. And obviously nowadays, artists make that a part of their career. But with really iconic literary figures such as Jane Austen or, Will Shakespeare jumps to mind as well, there's so much need to understand why someone could write the words they wrote. And so it is so funny to read the different or watch the different theses of different people who think about what Jane's life would have been like that led her to write the books she wrote.
Yeah. The other thing that I'll say that always stresses me out about movies about Shakespeare and Austen in particular, but there's this really mediocre Paul Newman movie from the 60s that I love where he plays a man who just won a Nobel Prize in literature. And I'm like, it has to be so hard to write dialogue for characters who are supposed to be good with words. And that is one of the things that is hard about watching this movie. You're like, Jane Austen would surely be better at talking than this.
Exactly correct. I mean, actually, you know what it's like? It's like, have you watched a biopic of a singer where an actor is singing the songs? Like, if you watch Rocket Man starring Taron Egerton, Taron Egerton is a very, very good singer, but he is not Elton John. So when he plays Elton John, it is jarring to hear him singing Elton John songs that Elton John sang better. And so with the writers, it's the same.
Right. She's inimitable. That's the whole thing. That's why we're still talking about her 250 years later. And so trying to imitate her, part of me is like, good for you. You got chutzpah. And the other part of me is like, don't you understand that there's something special about Elton John that makes Elton John, and inimitable means don't try? Okay, but what is your relationship with this movie? I can go first because I feel like I'm probably the only one of us who's old enough that I like saw this in the theater.
I definitely could have seen it in the theater. It came out when I was like in middle school, but I didn't.
Yes, I was fully a grown human. I was 25 when this came out. I saw it in the theater. I bought it on DVD. And I would say I have a love-hate relationship with this movie where I like literally love certain moments and hate certain moments. It's like an album where you're like, 3 of my favorite songs are on this album and the rest of the album is bad.
Yeah, skips.
And so I like owned it on DVD in part to just like, this is before YouTube, right? So like you would own things on DVD so you could like get the hits of the songs that you liked without, having to catch it on TV and where you couldn't fast forward. So the parts that I loved. And then I literally didn't understand whole parts of it.
Yeah, I think I would have been really into this movie if I watched it when it came out. My relationship to this movie is that I heard it came out and I never went for it. It has that air of certain mid-2000s, mid-budget rom-coms where there was like a time when a lot of these movies were being made. There's no shade to Katherine Heigl on this, but she was in a lot of those rom-coms and I like a lot of them.
Yeah.
But there's some where it's like, some scenes are really thought through and some scenes are really not. I feel like we don't make movies like this anymore. Either it's like a full mess or it all comes together and there's no in between. But this like sort of teetering between enjoyment and cringe that this movie kind of captures is such a weird place to live. But I genuinely really enjoyed watching it. So no skin off my back.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a really different time market-wise for film, right? Like, as a movie theater, you made a lot of your money on popcorn. And so this is why there were so many high concept movies at the time. If they could get enough butts in seats on opening weekend before the reviews came out, because you could get women like me who love Jane Austen and Anne Hathaway, then it was financially worth it. You recouped your costs. And like, that was it. And now with streaming, the business model is just totally different. And so the market allowed these like mediocre, weird movies to exist.
Yeah. I famously was not into Jane Austen in my youth. So I didn't know this movie existed, which is funny because it came out in 2007, which is a year after Penelope, starring James McAvoy and Christina Ricci, came out, and I was in the depths of my James McAvoy obsession. This man was like my top tier celebrity crush for several years following 2006. So I don't know how I didn't know about this movie, but I think because it was like a Jane Austen thing, it just went over my head. So yeah, I was not aware of this movie. When you all suggested that we watch it, I was like, that poster looks familiar. And so I think I know that this movie exists, but I knew nothing else. So I was going in completely blind.
I mean, a couple of other things about the 2007 of it all is that James McAvoy was really having a moment. Atonement also came out that year. He did The Last King of Scotland, which was nominated for Academy Awards, right? Like we were all in the midst of our James McAvoy obsession. And the other 2007 of it all is that this is coming off of the heels of the very financially successful Joe Wright Pride and Prejudice, which Joe Wright then does Atonement. So like this is all people are investing in this moment.
You know, this film, though, also feels to me like the natural child of Shakespeare in Love, which came out like 5 years before.
Yes.
Because it's very much beginning of the career author has a romance before they hit big that doesn't work out, which is the plot of Shakespeare in Love as well. And it's, you know, it has a similar energy and kind of pace to it that Shakespeare in Love had. And Shakespeare in Love was so successful critically.
I mean, it won Oscars.
Exactly.
Famously, Harvey Weinstein sort of bullied and bribed his way into those Oscars. But
yeah, everyone sort of thinks Shakespeare in Love did not totally deserve its Oscars, but
Wait, I loved Shakespeare in Love, like, and I still do, but I have not watched it in the most recent years. Does it hold up?
I don't know. I'm kind of afraid to rewatch it for this reason.
Because it holds such a special place in my heart.
Okay, so what does this movie believe about love? Molly.
So my takeaway from this movie was that love is dangerous. It's presented very much as the dangerous option. And I'm curious if it even believes that love can be a safe option. But it seems like everyone who falls in love ends up unhappy in this movie, except for Henry and the Countess. But I think that with James McAvoy's character being, you know, the one with the reputation, and then her having to run away to be with him if she wants to be with him, it's like this is the path less traveled, and it's scary, and it's not ever going to be easy.
Yeah, it's love without money is scary, right?
Yeah,
one of you has to be rich if you're going to fall in love.
Absolutely agree with that. I also think that this movie has a love is challenging mantra to it, because it very much has them at loggerheads the entire movie until they're in love, which is not uncommon, but they're bickering, they hate each other, and then they sort of challenge each other's views on the world until they come together. But then it kind of believes in this sort of like kissing in the rain, ripping your clothes off, sort of like all consuming, ruin your whole life for this love, but that is not enough.
Yeah. To me, this movie is also very much about the dangers of sex, right? It's like love is going to make you want to have sex, and there's no birth control. And so you need a lot of money to feed those babies. And this is like not a very sexy movie, but it definitely implies a lot of sex, right? The first time we meet James McAvoy, he has his shirt off. He is kissing sex workers and drunk, right? Like there's Jane and the Comtesse accidentally see Jane's brother and Tom naked, right? Like there's this love is going to lead you to horniness, which is going to lead to babies, which is going to destroy your life.
Yeah. This movie is way hornier than I thought it would be, actually.
But it's really like horniness will make you poor.
Right. There's an exact quote from the film that I think you basically said, which was when Jane was considering running off with Tom, her sister is like, what are you trading everything in for? A baby every year and no money to feed them?
Yeah.
And at first I was like, a baby every year? Why? And then I was like, oh, because that's about how long it takes to have a baby and then get pregnant again.
Yeah. Yeah. I do love that one of the opening bits of this movie is Reverend Austen going down on his elder middle-aged wife.
That is my favorite scene in this movie.
I was like, yes.
Becca did say halfway through, she was like, the problem with this movie is it hasn't yet topped Julie Walters getting eaten out in the first scene.
The reason that really struck me also, I was like, why do you need a baby a year? Everyone just go down on each other all the time. Come on, guys.
Right. There are other options.
There are other options. Come on. Okay, what was your favorite part of the movie?
Julie Walters getting eaten out in the first scene. No, I also
I know. I'm so
I
happy
also
for her.
really loved the character of Mr. Weasley, which I know is like a hot take for this movie, but watching it back, I was like, this man is so earnestly kind and sweet. Like, I would marry this man in an instant when he's like dancing with her and he steps on her foot and he goes, I practice so much, but it never gets better.
I know, and she's mean to him. She's like, ow! And I'm like, dude, like, chill out. Unless he, like, knocked off your toenail, pull it together and be nice. And then everyone's calling him a boob.
He called himself a boob, or who called themselves
No.
a boob?
Mr. Austen and Jane both call Mr. Weasley a boob, which I thought was slander.
A boobie.
A boobie, yeah.
Wow.
So rude. I'm like, stop it.
Yeah, he was very sweet. My favorite part was the child. Well, I guess she was like 13, Lucy, singing and playing the piano behind Tom Lefroy's head, and he's just like, he like winces with his whole body while she's like, ah!
Well, she's trying to flirt with him, right? She's like immediately attracted to him, this 15-year-old girl, and
Obsessed with her.
And is like, I'm accomplished. I'll prove it to you. And she's like, okay, on the piano. And so you're like, okay, girl. And then she starts singing and you're like, no.
Yeah.
So, oh God. It's very funny.
Very Mary Bennett coded.
Yes. My favorite part, I'm going to take this movie very earnestly. So I have two favorite, like, swoony romantic parts. One is that Tom arranges for Jane to go to London, and they get this, like, a couple days together for her to try to convince his uncle to, like, support their marriage. And he arranges for her to meet the famous authoress, Mrs. Radcliffe. I love a man who's like, I'm not going to take you to my interests. I'm going to take you to your interests. And just how seriously he takes her writing. Yeah, he's like, she's going to be an author, even once they're like talking about being engaged, right? He's not expecting her to give up her writing. And then the other very sweet moment, which Anne Hathaway throws away as a line, and I understand the acting choice. She wants to imply that Austen was so smart she could throw away this observation as if it's nothing, but it's so important. You know, we see Tom throughout the movie. He's boxing, he's gambling, he's whoring, he's, you know, whatever. And the reputation that he has is that he's a profligate, that he like can't hold on to money, and that he's really irresponsible. And then at the end, it turns out that that's an act, because what he's doing is sneaking his money to his parents and brothers and sisters back home. And I just love, like, what a lovely twist that is just like the opposite of real life, where it turns out that a man is not spending money frivolously, but pretending to, because he knows his uncle would be mad if his uncle found out that he, Tom, was sending money home, and that his uncle would be more patient with the idea that he's just like out there gambling. And so that he like pretends to be this jerk so he can send money home. What a great twist. The thesis of this movie kind of is that Jane Austen wrote Happily Ever Afters because she and her sister didn't get them, right? She like says it to Cassandra. She's like, I'm going to give these women what they actually deserve. I'm going to give my characters what women in the real world actually deserve and never get. And to some extent, this is that moment where it's like, no, the man she falls in love with is so worthy. And I love that.
Yeah. And then also, though, that's what leads her to leave him, which is heartbreaking.
Yeah, which is the other thing I think this movie believes about love, right? Which is that sometimes it means having to give the other person up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was y'all's least favorite part of the movie?
I have two. One's like a grander, overarching element, which is Anne Hathaway's accent. She just did not nail it.
I love Anne Hathaway, and I find this performance
perplexing,
distracting.
Yeah.
Like, I never get in on this performance.
And I also love Anne Hathaway so much so that I to Becca's dismay, love the filmed version of Les
So do I.
Mis. Amazing. Yes. And she's incredible in that. She was not great in this. I mean, her acting for me wasn't terrible. I think it was just that she was focusing so hard on doing an accent, which is usually my problem when Americans play British people. She just was focusing too hard on the accent. I could not believe that she was Jane Austen. And the other thing is a more specific moment, which is just it's a shot of, I think, the uncle's foot from below that just really did not need to be there.
It was an astonishing piece of cinematography in a movie that is largely gorgeous. On the Anne Hathaway performance bit, I agree with everything Molly said. I did look this up last night after we watched the movie. Apparently, a lot of her dialogue is voiceover in the movie because they couldn't hear her over the winds in a lot of their outdoor scenes in Ireland. And I wonder if that had some effect on the movie itself in the grander scheme and sort of shaped her performance in certain ways. But yeah, she has some really stunning moments. And I think her most stunning moments are the ones where she is silent. And I don't even mean that in a way that she shouldn't be talking, but what her work in the silences and the pauses is beautiful.
Yeah, it has to be hard to try to imagine Austen before she found her voice, which is the moment that this movie is taking place. And I don't know, it could just be that the character wasn't written in a clear way. But I'm like, is she confident in her writing? Is she self-loathing in her writing? Is she confident in her wit? Is she confident in her assertion that female novelists are up to something important? And I think the muddledness of the writing must have made it hard to act. Yeah, I mean, my least favorite part of the movie is when she kisses Tom. I love that she kisses Tom.
It's hot.
I'm like, yes, make the first move. But when he then grabs her and is like, you have to know I'm yours, I'm like, whoa, I super didn't know that. Like, the buildup of her, like, having a crush on him, this, like, hot new man in this rural town, he's annoying her, he's negging her. He gives her a book that she's like, oh, this Tom Jones is, like, hot and different. She's, like, looking at the drawings and are, like, is titillated. And then he, like, has this sense of justice that she's really interested in. You know, she gets that great feeling when you have a crush on someone where you're like, I know you better than other people. I see beneath the facade. And so I like, and she is Wesley, you know, pursuing her, who she thinks is a booby. And so she's like, oh, this is a not booby. So I get her arc up until the kiss. But when he then grabs her and is like, yeah, dude, me too. I was like, I kind of thought you thought she was naive and annoying. I thought she was about to be humiliated. And then I get totally swept up in like, he's so hot that when he's like, you must know, I'm like, I don't care that this makes no sense because I'm like, this is my favorite song, you know, on the CD. So like, sure. But I wish that made sense to me.
Thank you so much for saying that, because I thought, we both thought, I think, but I can only speak for myself. I thought I missed something. I was like, when did they fall in love? Did we talk through a moment? Like, when did this happen? I thought she was just annoyed at him the whole time. I didn't, like, yes, the kiss was so hot. And from that point on, I was like, yes, I buy it. You guys are you have a lot of chemistry. But there was not a single moment for me before that where I thought that they liked each other.
So what makes sense to me is he's presented himself as very cynical, right? He is spouting his uncle's really horrible and actually well articulated about like what white civility is and how awful it is point of view about what the law is for, right? The law is to protect property, and your job as a lawyer is not about justice, but it is about to protect the wealthy from the masses and like from chaos and from not white nobility, right? And James McAvoy is spouting that, and Jane is like, ugh, this guy is the worst. And he then reveals himself in this very sexy moment where he steps in to fight for justice. And she's like, I think that you maybe do care about justice. And he does this like ironic thing. she's like, oh, he's ironic. He likes to read. He does care about justice and he's trapped. And like the attraction to like a broody man who's trapped and is like acting out. That I totally get, regardless of James McAvoy's face. I do think that that is written into the script and signposted into the script. But him falling in love with her, other than the moment where she plays cricket well, and he is like, oh, that's hot. Tomboy vibes are
Not like
hot
other
because
girls.
she's kind of a cool girl. Other than that, I was like, twist. He likes her too.
What a twist in this romance film.
Yeah. I want that to be scaffolded for
same.
me.
I'm so glad you said that.
Okay, so what are the subtexts? What are some of the subtexts that we would like to make text in this movie? So the way that we think about this are like, what are the things that the movie in 2007 did not know that it believed that now with time and distance, we're like, oh, that's awkward. You believe that.
I don't know if this is exactly, I think this answers the question. My thoughts on this are that there's a lot of men speaking for / making decisions for women in this movie. And it doesn't entirely feel like it's on purpose. There's a specific quote, which is when Jane and Tom are running away and they're stopped at the inn and they're like getting dinner. And she's confronting him about the fact that he's sending money back home to his family and how's he going to keep doing that? And he needs to put them first. He says, don't speak, don't think, just love me. I think that kind of summarizes what I feel like this movie secretly believes, because Jane ended up seeming pretty unhappy at the end of this movie. So I felt icky to me, and it felt very prevalent and not in a way that the movie was like, you should be noticing this. It just kind of happened.
I agree with you in general. The dad scolding her in his opening sermon, and definitely her brother at the end going and getting Tom, right? Like it's 20 years later or whatever. And Austen is an anonymous but very successful writer and like a barely anonymous writer. And they run into Tom, and Henry, her brother, like goes and gets Tom and brings her back. And she's like, I could kill Henry right now, right? There is this like, she isn't in charge. I did have a different reading of that scene in the inn, though, when he's like, don't think, just love me. I'm like, oh, dude, that's not going to work. It's Jane Austen. And it doesn't work. To me, it speaks to his desperation because he knows that he can't say to Jane Austen, this woman whose mind, what he wants is for her to not think. He's like, please, you and your brilliant brain, what I need you to do right now is not think. And it's like, well, that's not going to work. I hate her answer because the quote about irony of like, it's not bad, it's ironic. And so I have to say it with a smile or I'll count it as false. I'm like, that is such a bad definition of irony. And I really understand why you're like, the subtext of this movie does not actually take women's intelligence seriously because it's constantly undermining the intelligence and it's not well written enough. Jane Austen's answer in that moment to don't think should be a quote from Austen. And to your point, Molly, it gives a man credit for a truth universally acknowledged.
Right.
Like Whistler is the one who says it. And I'm like, no, boo. To quote my favorite 3-year-old, boo, yuck, boo. No.
Yeah, absolutely. And this isn't 100. I mean, this is not necessarily about the subtext of the film, but I felt like her writing and her brilliant mind didn't play enough of a role in the story as a whole.
No.
Like, did this movie just have her write all of Pride and Prejudice in one night? For the most part, like there was this writing montage. I know she finished it later and she was like, okay, now I have the perfect opening sentence, so it's done. But
because Whistler gave it to me.
But like everything that I have heard up to this point, and we have only watched Miss Austen in terms of like biopics, but I went to the Morgan exhibit and I've been learning about Jane Austen's life over the last 6 years. And everything that I have been fed has said that her writing and her sister were her true loves. And
Yeah.
those things did not play a super big role in this film. I know it's a rom-com or a romance film, so like they're going to center the romance, but this movie very much felt like it was centered on the men.
Yeah. This was actually my subtext discomfort that I had, which was the uneasy relationship this movie has with Austen's genius and her work, because you actually get the sense that she's not that great before she meets Lefroy. That's kind of implied. And
Yeah. Whereas we know when she was like 15, she wrote a
Yes.
farcical history of England that holds up today as hilarious.
Jane Austen is a level of brilliant that is innate. She obviously worked at it, but that was the implication of the movie from the way I see it is, one, she needed to meet this man who gave her a romantasy novel and made her a better writer because it made her, quote, more worldly. And two, she needed to be in love to write about love. And also the third implication is that her and Cassandra, their lives end when they lose the loves of their life. And the consolation prize is that they spend their lives together and that she writes her novels. And again, I do think this is formed by the fact that Molly and I recently watched Miss Austen, which is about the love story between Cassandra and Jane Austen. But I think that it's much more interested in the idea of her finding love and him changing her life, which ferrets the movie, than any idea that she was a genius in her own right. He has to be the one to give her the genius. And that is uncomfortable from my perspective because it's Jane Austen.
The idea that she wouldn't have read Thackeray until he gave it to her is offensive.
Yeah.
To me, the big subtext is like digging your own potatoes is for chumps. Marrying for love means you're going to be poor, and then you're going to have to dig your own potatoes. And that is just like humiliating. I guess I think that the movie to some extent thinks that people choose poverty. It's like kind of a Republican movie of like, you can choose to not be poor, actually.
Yeah. I mean, we have always kind of thought of Mrs. Bennet as a Republican. And I feel like in that moment where Mrs. Austen is complaining about digging her own potatoes and gives that gorgeous speech, also, God bless Julie Walters, I was very much like, yes, this is a justification of Mrs. Bennet.
This is another thing. Every time I've seen a movie or any sort of work adapting Jane Austen's life, there is this implication that her parents are the Bennets. And as far as I understand it, that's apparently not what Mrs. Austen was actually like in real life. So I did, if I were going to be generous to Julie Walters and as Mrs. Austen in that speech, I would kind of place it in the Greta Gerwig, Amy March category of like, as a woman, you don't have a lot of opportunities to better yourself in this world, and you have to do it through marriage or you don't have any other choice.
Oh, yeah. I think she's scared for her daughter. And she's like, I am digging my own potatoes and I want better for you. The opportunity that you have is so narrow. Do you think you're going to have time to write if you're single and poor? And do you think that you're going to have time to write if you're married and poor? The only way to do it is to be married and rich. But what she's not doing is taking Jane's writing seriously. I think she's just like, I don't care about your writing. Your only thing is to be married and rich.
And then her father takes her aside and is like, you're not going to get a better offer than this.
Yeah.
And I think this happens a lot in Austen's novels, too, with the poorer characters and being told they're not going to get a better offer, specifically by Mr. Collins being like, this is your best offer. It's such a cynical point of view. It might be realistic, but it's like, you can't have love and money, is ultimately what this movie's saying.
Yeah, unless you're lucky enough to fall in love with a rich person.
Like the Countess.
Yes, that was lucky.
Henry Austen, lucky dog.
Okay, what are we learning about Miss Jane Austen and her representation in popular culture on this, her 250th birthday?
Mm.
I think this movie tells us more about what people take away from Jane Austen than what Jane Austen herself is. I mean, we haven't said this yet. This is in some ways just Pride and Prejudice. This
Pride and
movie,
Prejudice
it's
with a sad ending.
Mm-hmm.
exactly like what if Mr. Darcy were poor, essentially.
Which is a great premise. You just sold me on the premise of this movie. I was like, ooh.
Yeah.
What if Mr. Darcy were poor? Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's not a happy ending.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's true of pretty much all of Jane Austen's heroes. It's a very different story if they're poor. And I think you see it in characters like Wentworth or Willoughby. But I think that it shows me that the people who love Jane Austen often take specific things away from her stories. And here I see the loggerheads romance, the coziness of hanging out in upper class Regency England, the wistful romance of a light score and an Empire waist dress that we haven't talked about. This is not really an Empire waist dress, but those elements of the story to me are more about what Austen fans love than maybe Jane Austen herself.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have something similar, and I think maybe similar to what we all felt about this movie. But because she's a romance author, people romanticize her and her life when we actually don't know a ton. And what we do know is that she ended up single and that she was engaged for one day. And we don't know a lot else about her love life, but people tend to like really dive into like she must have had some secret love because she wrote all of these romance novels.
Yeah, I think we want her to be one of her heroines. And the other thing that I think that this movie teaches us about Austen and pop culture is that she has become her own high concept pitch. It's like this movie could be about not Jane Austen. There's so little that actually has to do with her. And yet it's just like, well, if we add the name Austen to it, that's it. We're going to get more women's butts in seats. And so her ubiquity and popularity, even more than her ubiquity and popularity, she connotes so much. There will be this Regency coziness. There will be balls. There will be horses and carriages. There will be moments of like passionate love. And so it's her name has come to mean so much that it can be its own marketing angle. And I think that this movie would only be made better if it didn't pretend to be about Jane Austen, because it's really hamstrung by that. We could be really scared for her that maybe she's not going to be a successful author, and that like when she's like, I'm going to survive by my pen, you're not scared for her when she says that and says no to Whistler, right? You're like, yeah, she is. But if that was actually a really scary thing, which it was a bold and daring thing, I think that the stakes of the movie would be better.
Right.
And yeah, it's just there's a market. There's a market for Austen, I feel like is, the thing that we know and that this movie symbolizes.
100%. And even more so today than in 2007, I think. I mean, obviously 2007 was the heyday of like, we've already talked about Pride and Prejudice had just come out. But right now, there's another Pride and Prejudice coming out. There's another
And a Sense and Sensibility
coming
It's
out.
every 20 years.
So I think we're re-entering that era. And then we just got Miss Austen. So yeah, every 20 years, Jane Austen comes around. And specifically right now, because of the 250th, I think we're going to get a lot more Jane Austen romanticizing and drama.
Yeah. Retreat into a world in which every room had rules and norms. Okay, favorite line delivery? I have a few.
Go for it.
I mean, I basically have all of my, like, the moments that I would fast forward to. I do love Julie Walters's, and now I have to dig my own damn potatoes. But my two favorite moments are James McAvoy. And I think that he also gives great face in these. So it's line delivery, but it's also like, ugh.
Swimming in his big blue eyes.
He has such good, like, face lines. His face
Ugh.
crinkles in this, like, really adorable way that I fall for. But when he runs into Jane and her brother after he's engaged to someone else, they are like separated, and Jane has this monologue about like, no, I am not in love with him. I am fine. And he says, I cannot do this. And he says it small. A lot of this movie has people saying big things small. And he says it small and grabs her arm and kisses her. And just the like, oh, I can't do this, rather than like, I can't do this. I love the smallness of that performance. And it's like this sad realization. But the hottest moment is when she's like, they are having tea at this inn during the break. They're in the middle of running away together. And she has realized that they can't run away together because he has all these mouths to feed. And she's like, how are you going to be a lawyer without your uncle's support? And how are you going to support your family? And he says, I will rise. And it is just, a confident man. Like, I am gonna do it. And her answer is great, right? Of like, you will fall and you will fall, you will drown, something. And like, we will all go down with you. Like, it's too much pressure. Even you can't. But I will rise. Whew! Sexiest part of the movie. Oh my God. I'm like, yes, you will. That would have worked on me. I would have been like, yeah, you will. And I'm going to help you do it, baby. Who wouldn't follow this man?
It was very sexy and very heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And also another example of this movie being a fan fiction of Jane Austen's life, like through the lens of all her different books. Because that's a very Wentworth moment of like, I'm going to do it and you're going to see. And then he does do it, but only because she let him go.
Right.
It is very hot.
I will.
And that kiss when he says, I cannot do this. And then I actually felt my stomach like leap out of my body. Like, it was so good.
I really hate that I'm giving all of these to James McAvoy, but I think that these are the moments. And
He's
don't
a great
think Anne
actor.
Hathaway does a good job with her lines, which maybe it was because of the wind and the voiceover. But there was no one of her lines that I was like, yes.
I will give Jane and Anne one line. I have three.
Yes.
One, I will start with Julie Walters, obviously at the beginning going, Mr. Austen, no, stupid, it's Sunday. When he's about to go down on her.
You can't go down on me on a Sunday.
It's Sunday. That made me very happy. And then the chuckle she lets out when she just lets him go ham, like beautiful moment, perfect, no notes. And then I would say, so my favorite scene between the two of them is actually the scene after the evil uncle denies his consent to their proposal. Because I actually think that's the one where they're unraveling, but they can't quite grasp what they've lost yet. And so they know, like, logically that they've lost and they can't do this, but emotionally they're not there yet. And when she says to him, what are you going to do? And he goes, what I must. There's like deep heartbreak behind the eyes where they're both like, no. This isn't happening yet. So I would give it to McAvoy saying what I must. And then third, I'll give this one to Anne for when that weird dude proposes to her and you find out he's been in love with her the whole time and like screwed her over. And she goes, thank you for your kind offer. But are there no other women in Hampshire?
Yeah. I'm so tired of getting proposed to.
Yeah.
Must be hard, Jane.
Yeah.
I also have three, and two of them are also James McAvoy, who I didn't realize, like, I knew he was the hottest person in this film, but I didn't realize that he was also the best actor. I have what kind of lawyer will that make? And then James McAvoy going, typical. I have James McAvoy saying, justice plays no part in the law, just because that was really hot.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have, this line is in the trailer, so I was ready for it and expecting it, but it is Maggie Smith when she says, what is she doing? And Mrs. Austen says, writing. And Maggie Smith goes, Can anything be done about it? Iconic.
It's a brief breath of the Dowager Countess from Downton Abbey
Totally.
in this performance before she existed. The writing is not quite as snappy as Downton Abbey's writing, which is sublime in the first few seasons. But Maggie Smith's performance is like a whisper of what is to come in that role.
Yeah. I do want to, just because I love Anne Hathaway so much, there's one line reading that I was like, oh, this is beautiful. When he is trying to explain to her why they can't be married. And he says, I depend entirely on my uncle. And she says, and I depend on you.
Mm.
It's so vulnerable and like hopeful. It is a heartbreaking performance, not just the line. So I'll give Annie that.
That's a good one.
Okay, if you could rewrite this ending, how would you change it? I have a few.
Tell us.
Okay, there are two big things that I would actually change. And one of them is the thing that keeps Tom and Jane apart is that right as Tom is about to ask his uncle to support the marriage, the uncle gets a letter. And we find out at the very end of the movie that it's this man who, Becca, you mentioned, who it turns out has been in love with Jane the whole time. And he sent a letter to destroy the engagement so that he could propose to Jane. And I am so confused as to what was in this letter and like how the uncle and this man knew each other and how he would have the reputation and power to do it. I'm like, what is happening here? That this is what kept them apart? And I find her reaction to it big, but not big enough. This man ruined her life. And so the stakes of all of that, I would really like addressed. But the other thing is small, which is that we find out that Tom did rise, right? That like he was able to rise as a successful lawyer. And I'm like, did he marry the woman from Limerick? Like, what did he do? Did he not have a lot of kids? Was it the horniness that would have been the problem? I really, I like want, again, a sentence of like, how is your lady from Limerick? Something like, how did he make this happen? So those are my two things. I do want these things explained to me.
I'm so glad that you brought up the letter because once again, I thought I missed something. We had a watch party with our patrons to watch this, and I was like texting the Discord, what's in the letter? And nobody was answering me. And I was like, did they explain it? I thought the letter was completely unrelated. The timing was so weird because it was like, how did this letter arrive
before?
Like the exact moment he's going to bring it up? Did everyone know? And also at some point, I wrote down that my favorite part of this movie was Mr. Warren because he was just an endearing, like, third party. I had no idea what his purpose was. And then his purpose was to secretly ruin her life, but for a reason that wasn't ever made clear.
Well, he loved her. He wanted he wanted to put her in a destitute situation so he could propose.
So what did he write in the letter?
Great question.
She has a teddy bear fetish.
It must have been that. Creepy doll collection.
Yeah. I have no idea what he could say. Okay, what about you guys? How would you change it?
I would rewrite this movie with a happy ending. I would have put a thread through the movie that Jane Austen was torn the entire movie between her love and her writing. They touch on this briefly in the Mrs. Radcliffe scene where she goes to visit her and she talks about the difficulty of being a wife and an author at the same time. And I was like, oh, are they going to thread that in? And then they didn't. And I wish they had. I wish that through line had carried through where when she has this heartbreaking goodbye to Tom Lefroy, at the end of the day, she says, okay, but I do get to return to the thing I love most in the world, which is my writing. And for her to be happy and fulfilled with having had a marvelous career as a writer at the end of the story. That's how I would change the ending. So when she comes back to him, it's not as this forlorn, ill woman who's just got all these regrets about the happy ending she didn't get. It's this woman who's lived this full life and looking at the man she used to love and his family and just being happy that he had that and she had what she had. That's what I would change.
I really love that point, Becca. I think that that's absolutely right and so smart.
Yeah, I have essentially the same thing, but I just think that when she leaves Lefroy, it's so much about him. And I think it's sweet that she's like, you have to put your family first. You have a job and a duty to them. But what it really should have been is that if she ran off, from what we know from her novels and from like studying the time period, I guess, for some people, if you elope in Scotland, your reputation is tarnished, and she would never have been able to publish under her own name. And I know that she published anonymously at first, but eventually her books were published under her name. And if she had had a tarnished reputation, people wouldn't have read it. It would have been scandalous. So it should have been for her to be able to continue pursuing her dreams. She couldn't run off to Scotland and elope.
Or at least both, right? At least she could be like, don't worry about me. Now I'm going to get to be a writer.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I love that.
absolutely.
Okay, who wins this film?
I have a couple potential winners.
Okay.
One, Julie Walters, because she's the highlight of any film for me.
Absolutely.
And two, I think that Henry and the Comtesse are the two that end up the happiest in this film.
Which you have to have movable property
Yes.
in order to be happy. But I love an older woman and a hot young guy. Good for them.
Good for them.
I was very invested in their love story throughout, and it was nice to see, a wedding at the end of some sort. So very good pick. I'm going to give it to my guy Wesley for showing respect to women and supporting women's rights and women's wrongs at the end of this movie.
Yes. He doesn't punish
Taking
her.
rejection.
Yes.
Yeah.
So gracefully.
I love that, Becca.
Love him. I would have 100% accepted his marriage proposal, but also Jane was within her rights not to do so.
Yeah.
But I will say I find the writing confusing again because he does act kind of like a booby throughout the movie. And then at the end, he's like super confident. And I'm like, wait, did you get a personality change? Jane, you should now say yes to this man because this man is confident and fully realized, which is like what you didn't like about him before.
Right.
And so I'm like, this new personality man is hot. Yeah, that was not great writing to me. I would say Jane wins, not to like be super obvious about it, but she says like, I can support myself with my pen. And that is like a bold proposition. And right, like her mom gets really mad at it. Molly, to your point, like Maggie Smith is like, can something be done about how awkward it is that she's a writer, right? and Molly, to your previous point, also, it is only after Wesley is like, you're going to do it, right? Like the men a little bit get the credit for it. But she does win. She supports herself with her pen and gets to read and to young women and inspire young women at the end, right? Like she's this famous writer at the end. She had to give up everything to do it. I always think about Ralph Nader in those contexts, right? Like he really gave up everything to dedicate his life to social justice. And I know that post year 2000, we all feel more complicated about Ralph Nader, but he really had to live such a pure life and never got married. Like just gave up everything to be this pure soul and dedicate his life to a cause. And I think that the movie posits that that's what Austen had to do too, right? Like she really does just get these few kisses and like that's it. But she wins. She becomes Jane Austen.
Speaking of her few kisses that she gets to do, I want to give a shout out to the first kiss, after which she asks if she did it well, and he says, yes, very well. And she says, I wanted to do it well just once. Because she thinks she's about to go enter into a loveless marriage.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, finish this sentence. Molly, you should watch this movie if.
You like looking at James McAvoy's dreamy face.
Yeah, I was going to put that in and you had done it first. And that was just literally, I was like, that's the reason. That's the reason. Becca, you should watch this movie if.
You enjoy a sweet romance between two very good-looking people in a comforting Regency backdrop.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you should watch this movie if you can get by on a few swoony moments, knowing that they are very swoony. And so if you're someone who doesn't mind listening to the bad songs on the album to get to the hits, this is a great movie.
Hell yeah.
Or a series of YouTube clips if you only want to watch this movie, swoony moments.
You need the buildup though. Like you do need the like boring. I'm curious if you could literally just watch the hits. I don't know that it would
I don't
work.
think you could.
I don't know if you could, but I was trying to find a way to watch this movie for free. And there are several playlists on YouTube that are just the swoony moments.
Just the hits. Molly and Becca, it is always so much fun to talk about Jane Austen with you guys. It's just always fun to talk to you guys. So thank you so much for doing this crossover episode with us. And I know we'll keep finding ways to work together. Well, I hope we keep finding ways to work together. The saying I know made it sound like I'm going to make you do it. Shotgun episode.
This was so much fun. I was so glad that you guys suggested this, and I can't think of a better way to celebrate Jane Austen's 250th birthday than to talk about her with you.
I bet she's like, thank you for saving my reputation from this movie. I feel like from the grave, she's like, Molly, Becca, Vanessa, thank God for you.
Yeah, our best friend Jane Austen is so grateful for us
So
specifically.
grateful for us.
Yes.
So next week on Hot and Bothered, we're starting our next mini-series on the wedding industrial complex, and we are going to be watching the movie My Best Friend's Wedding.
Oh my God.
I know. You guys, it's so good. It's so good. What are you guys doing on Pod and Prejudice?
Next week on Pod and Prejudice, next week, not next time, listeners, next week, we are going to be starting our season 5 coverage of Mansfield Park. So please, yes, please go ahead and read those first 2 chapters of Mansfield Park. And patrons at the $15 tier, we will be posting a Google Doc where you can put your study questions in so that we can ask them on air in our first episode. Can't wait to get back to book reading with you guys.
So excited.
I'm so excited to listen along.
Pod and Prejudice is edited by Molly Burdick and audio produced by Graham Cook. Our show art is designed by Torrance Brown. Our show is transcribed by SpeechDocs Podcast Transcription. For transcripts and to learn more about our team, check out our website at podandprejudice.com. To keep up with the show, you can follow us on social media at Pod and Prejudice. If you love what you hear, check out our Patreon to see how you can support us. Buy some merch at podandprejudice.dashery.com or just drop us a rating and a review wherever you get your podcasts. Stay proper.